Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. I am unfortunately your host, who full of some weird manic energy that I can't quite describe, Zachingo Finch. I'm also joined by my co-host, Gregory Elliott. We just lost 3-1 to Manchester United in a game that the commentators described as, well, after what was for an hour, an outstanding performance, which I think you could put as the tagline for so much of this season.
It's the story of the season by far. Look, for 81 minutes, we were by far the better team.
Perfect. We're going to have so many gold stars. There's going to be the same type of... It's the same type of accolades that Spurs have in their trophy cabinet. It's like,
But it's at the end of the
team.
day, mate, if you're breaking it down to the basics, it's the same problem. It's that even with being the best team for 82 minutes,
we can't score.
We didn't score a goal. They knocked it in the net for us.
Oh my goodness gracious me.
The goal came and they said it on TV and they were like, Southampton haven't scored from a corner all season. I'm like, well, let's hope that's the commentator's curse. And then it went in and I'm like, we didn't even score that.
We did not. I had to try explain to my wife during half time as I ran around the house happy that she was like, what? How did that even happen? I was like, I don't know, kind of came off the back of Tyler Diblin's head and hit a Manchester United player into their goal. Definitely not a goal we should have scored, but the problem with that is that you had great shot from Sulemana, 12 minutes, great save from Onana. Fernandez on target with straight in the arms. A few set pieces, but they didn't really do a lot. Garnacho
there was a
missed.
chance. I was going to say, how did Garnacho miss that sitter from the penalty spot at that point?
I am of all the players they brought off, I am very surprised he remained on the pitch because we absolutely. To be honest, for me, that was obviously it was classic Saints doing Saints things, and we'll get into that in a bit. But for me, that was really a game of game management, and our substitutions were bad and seemed to make little to no sense in my mind. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. And Manchester United's didn't. They looked significantly better. As much as Agate and Rasmus were really, really sad, and you could see how miserable they were. Everyone else who came on was better.
I feel exactly the same as when we got beat by Arsenal, where it's like, well, our substitutions were rubbish, but honestly, who else have we got?
Yeah, but this is my problem: is that
quality shot through.
I don't think maybe we should have made the substitutions. I don't think that the players who they took off looked like they were done. Like Dibbling, I understand was an injury, but swapping him off for a returning Will Smallbone, who I don't remember much as an attacking midfielder.
I would have maybe bought on Downs at that point.
Or Lallana.
We were forced to. Well, yeah.
Why would you not bring Lallana on? Why does he warm the bench? Where I'm at is genuine thing. I love Lallana, but if he is never going to play for us, surely having a Sam Amu on the bench would make more sense because he might actually.
I agree with that.
Offer another alternative because at the moment I feel like he's just there to kind of like learn management skills from the manager.
I don't disagree, but I just think that in that moment, what the game needed was shoring up, and I don't know if Lallana's in a state of fitness to where that's what he brings. He would raise the game of everyone else around him. We've seen that, and I don't think it would be a bad call. I just think bringing on Downs and leaving on Ugo Chukwu feels like the more sensible option. Or even like Archer. What's Archer got to do to get on the pitch? Like at least he's going to run.
Idea.
At least he's going to run at the centre backs and not give them time to. It was that was the first of the strange decisions towards substitutions.
Yeah, but the thing is it's a tale as old as time for Saints this season, right? It's that we should have put away all the chances that we didn't put away, and like this isn't to take any disrespect from Sulemana. Like he was electric. I don't know what has happened. Whether he's seen like a lifestyle coach, whether he's realised that he's not going to get a certain bonus. I genuinely don't know. Like I don't want to be that cynical.
I think you said it last episode, mate. It's January, so he might be able to move.
Is it shop window time? Is he suddenly going to be bad at the end of January? Who knows? Like, is it because he's been given, I guess, the confidence of a manager to play in a position and do those things. But the problem is that you cannot, like, there was usually, obviously, we complained of the style over substance, but a lot of the style did actually pay off today. But there were a lot of times where he held onto the ball a little bit too long, and then to try and make it a fancy goal when it could have just been a tap in.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. But that's a lot of, I still think he's managed to create more chances than most of our forward players this season in the 2 games he's been involved in.
100%.
So either way,
was pretty good until he went off as well. Like he got
Diblin was really, really good.
Might have drawn what most seasons would probably be save of the season from Onana with that double save.
100%.
Obviously, save of the season earmarked for Ramsdale, that one time earlier in the season. But yeah, I don't know. I feel so sad and yet entirely at peace with that is exactly what I expected to happen. So
but that's the devastating thing about it, and this is why if we don't beat Derby's point record, this is exactly going to be why. Because, like, again, classic Saints of we spend the entire game not the entire game. We spend a lot of the second half sort of 1-0 up. We really need a second goal to kill it off. We don't quite get it. They start having chances. They start to build confidence. They build more confidence. We make some strange substitutions. They score. We panic. We try and shore things up, but you could feel it. It was like a buzz in the air. And I literally put 83 minutes, like the vibes are changing. And this was after we sort of brought on Wood and Onuachu for Bednarek, which I don't really understand why. He wasn't carded.
That one. No.
And Ugo Chukwu, where, again, like, I don't really understand. He was one of the best players we had today as well. To bring him on for a cameo of the big man who I think had the ball like once or twice. And then, obviously, because of that vibe change and the fact that our team are no longer gelling together because we've got a lot of changes going on, they score again. And they score again both by getting round Kyle Walker-Peters, who, again, is playing on the left and not the right. I don't think that's... I know that he would play better on the right, but I also know that, like, Sugawara had a pretty good game as well, all things considered.
Kyle Walker-Peters, I wrote down before the goals, admittedly, Kyle Walker-Peters continues to be incredible, has been absolutely solid at the back. And I think the first goal he got unlucky. He took an unlucky bounce off his leg, and, any other player on the pitch of the other 22 players isn't striking it as quickly as that in such a positive way. It's just an unlucky break.
I just think that Ahmed's a better player. That's not his fault.
The second goal, Walker-Peters could probably have done better, but but then the third goal is just
the third goal.
Classic Saints, isn't it?
Yeah, because it was directly after the commentary team.
I wrote it as just completing the full house bingo card of a classic Saints capitulation.
I feel really bad for the travelling fans, like going up on coach to Manchester all day on a Thursday of all days to be able to, they wanted 2
minutes of the best day of their lives.
Well, this is the thing, right? Somebody commented on one of our TikToks a while back, the Sheffield United fans say they feel for us. He's like, you've got to enjoy every moment, every goal. And I'm like, you literally do. That's all we have now. Like, we have to enjoy this sort of 80 minutes of football that's good. But the problem is it's like, I just worry, are we ever going to win in the Premier League ever again? Is this it now? Like, for the rest of time, we just cursed to not. So yeah, some of my sort of like outsidey notes is obviously Sulemana getting it done. Bree played really well, considering the sort of, I guess, career trajectory he has had at Southampton is joining under a former manager to get to play in the Premier League as the team he left is then promoted to the Premier League, plays some championship football, and now seems to be sort of into Zurich's starting 11 finally in a really, really bad season. So I'm really happy for him. I pointed out that the centre-backs barely had the ball, which was a lovely change. There was not a huge amount of passing around at the back, which is lovely.
Dennis had quite a bit of the ball, but mostly through stepping up into midfield.
But that's what I mean. Like, usually whenever he had it, he was passing it forward, though, was the big difference. But let's talk a little bit more about the game after a word from our partners at Zencastr.
So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back. So, yeah, the other performance I wanted to point out, like Aribo played a lot better than he has the last couple of games as well. Like, I just genuinely think that, like, the commentary team said it quite well with the fact that we weren't playing like a team at the bottom of the table, but we did as soon as they started scoring.
We've seen that all season. If there's not, apart from 3 notable exceptions where we've not shown up at all and been absolutely battered, apart from those 3 games, every single game this season we've been there or thereabouts. For Bournemouth as well, in the first half we got annihilated, but it's been spells here and there where it's good, and the spells are getting longer, which are giving a bit of hope that maybe there's a trajectory to getting something here. But it's
do
just
you see us now going on to beat Newcastle or Forest? Genuinely,
not even.
no, not
One
even.
of the notes I wrote down early in the first half here is this aggressive style of play is good, but leaves us susceptible for a counter-attack. Thankfully, United don't seem to want to move the ball that quickly forward. However, Nottingham Forest are notoriously a counter-attacking team. So if we go in on Sunday with that same approach, we could be in for another
Well,
Spurs,
I think that
honestly, because we're just going to get annihilated by the counter.
I'm hoping with like the game plan that he had today, really sort of. I don't know if it's just because Sulemana is now showing up or what. It showed that like okay, maybe they'll be on something. So I'm really hoping we don't go after watching some of Forest games and go maybe we should just play the same way we did last week because that's why we got rid of the last manager. So that's the only piece of hope I have. But and also you can tell how furious Jurek was in comparison to sort of where Russell Martin's nervous tick that I pointed out to you that you didn't really notice much was he would constantly crouch down and pick up and rip up little bits of grass all the time. Jurek seems to be pacing more and more frantically, but genuinely sort of shouting at the players,
I think he
getting
took
mad.
out a Man United fan in Rose Ed with a water bottle at one point.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, and I can understand why he's fuming, and I hope I don't know. I don't know what is needed to stop the capitulation after we concede a goal. I don't know whether it's giving them a hug. I don't know whether or not it's going to be somehow getting a run of games where we don't do that even if it's just a bunch of draws. I don't really mind if it's fear. If it means they've got to be scared of him shouting at them, and that's why they don't want to lose, I'm kind of right with it because maybe they need that a little bit. Like maybe there needs to be consequences to the actions because like our fan base has travelled all the way to Old Trafford in a season where we have 6 points to watch 80 minutes of us be amazing, completely undone by a hat-trick that took place from the 82nd to the 94th minute. So that is 8 minutes of football. It went from 1-0 to 3-1. And I laugh because what do? You cry.
12 minutes, that's awful maths. Come on.
Sorry, yeah, no, you're right.
Not Sadio Mane territory yet. It's
But and then the thing is as well is we have a couple of our fellows at GSPN were talking about how insane the decision was to captain Diallo tonight, and guess what? It paid off real well on their FPL. But like, just
also one of the hilarious notes I wrote down at the start in the first half was that he got booked for diving in the first half.
He did. That is something. Ahmed for yellow for simulation, and to which I put ... lol in the 45th +1 minute. But yeah, that's the thing. You kind of they didn't really turn up. Anthony had what I can only describe as the miss of the season. That was
horrendous.
That was genuinely like maybe it will be a turning point for them because ironically, when they were playing their players who had nothing to do with the antics of previous Manchester United, they played a lot better, and fair play to them. But it's like we could have won that had we put away those chances, and that is the story of our season. I don't know who we could get in to start putting chances away. We have like the top goal scorer for the championship last season, and we're talking about dipping in now to get like Whittaker from Plymouth, who probably wouldn't want to come. It's like I don't know if it's just there's something weird about when the ball gets into the box. It just doesn't ever feel like it's going in. I keep pointing this out. It's like a feeling. There's a whole vibe to it, and it felt a lot better tonight. But there was still
even then it wasn't
watching.
us that scored the goal.
There you go. And that's the kind of thing. And it's like, I don't know what we need to do. Do we just shove them in front of shooting practice? Because I don't think it's that. I think it's a
It's
worry
not
at
the
the end.
same. It's not
It's so
you don't
weird.
get to be a player at any level who gets paid the amount of money they get paid without, being able to kick the ball in the net in a non-pressure situation. It's clearly it's mentality, it's dealing with the pressure, it's dealing with the fact that they haven't been able to do it so far this season, and that getting, how many times at the start of the season did we just say they just need a goal and then it'll start piling on, and then Cameron Archer gets a couple and looks like he's going to be hitting the ground running. Now all of a sudden he's the one that
You
can't get
say a
in the
couple.
squad.
It was like 2-2, mate. Let's not get too.
That's a
I know
couple.
this for
Well,
a fact.
that's still better than the rest of the team. Like,
Yeah, but this is my point: is that then we played him for a significantly large portion of it after, and it never came afterwards. And this is like, again, like, if it, I can understand why we're trying anything, right? We've now had the tool pool. We've still not had the tool pool Archer combo. I think we had it for 5 minutes before a
yeah,
substitution. We've had Armstrong not really managed to even get slightly to where he was last season. You've now got Dibbling up front with Sulemana, who, yeah, they managed it in the FA Cup, but they need to do something in the Premier League for it to matter. I don't think that we would be talking about Sulemana being one of our forward players that we were expecting to be a goal scoring threat
no. But look,
even 4 weeks ago.
there's only one. I know that we don't tend to pay too much attention to statistical analysis on this show, but there's a stat from the game that really drills home probably why it never feels like we're going to score when we're in the box, and that's just total touches inside the opposition's box. So we had 18, which, to be honest, is high for us. Man United had 48. Like, and that's why when it came, it felt like it was coming. They probably should have been 2-1 up before they even scored, because if a
Yeah, you're
competent
not wrong.
footballer that's not Anthony gets on the end of that chance, like, even tall Paul could have scored that. Do you know what I mean? And then
You're right.
Garnacho had one in the first half. Like,
Falling to the ground like a sniper had taken him out for no apparent reason did seem like a decision. And I'm sure when he looks back at when he's playing for like some sort of low level Greek team, because that's the only place he's going to end up after a
genuinely
terrible season.
more success if he did his trademark 360 spin move.
Right, he might have accidentally rolled it into the goal at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sad to lose in the way that we lost, but
It's the hope that kills you. We say it every time.
it had been coming for a while. Like I say, if they put away if we put away our chances, we'd have won. But also, if they'd have put away some of their chances, like Garnacho's miss was a ridiculous miss. Anthony's miss was the most ridiculous miss I've ever seen. Bruno had a chance that if there were any other players up in the box supporting him, and he'd have been able to drag it back instead of trying to chip Rambo, was probably a goal then as well. So it feels like it was a harsh way to lose, but to get to that point in the 82nd minute, we'd ridden our luck.
Yeah, but and this, yeah,
we didn't sit off, but we did slow down. And
but then again, I think that's slightly to do with the substitutions. You ended up having a group of players that were gelling, that were playing really, really well. And I understand that there's tiredness and bits and pieces. And like with Dibbling, I understand it. He basically picked up a small knock. How that's going to affect the rest of our season, who knows? But like when it came to the other ones, like it seemed to just not work. Like, and it's like maybe playing the non-Russell Martin players has been good because they don't seem as tainted by the defeat. Whereas, we brought on a Flynn Downs who, quite frankly, this season just hasn't been the player he was last season. First thing he did was come on and get booked, and then, unfortunately, gets in the way of a really good Taylor Harwood-Bellis block. Taylor Harwood-Bellis playing...
Classic Russell Martin booking for Flynn Downs as well, just to take one for the team.
Absolutely, yeah, it's very... Yeah, we're going to have the problem because we've changed the manager halfway through the season, and I think your episode on philosophies, and if anyone's not listened to it, you should probably have a look back into it. I think it's titled "How Pep Guardiola Ruined Football." That's worth a listen. That's worth a listen because, like, that explains why whenever you shift the manager in such a way, like I remember us talking to the Wolves podcast as well, with them still struggling about the way that they play, because a lot of the players still want to play the same way as they did under Nuno, because they just that's kind of what's drilled into them. And
you're right though, because with that freedom, Sulemana looks like a completely different player now that he's willing to get his head down and take a player on. Like I've seen multiple pundits say that he had the young lad he was up against on toast, right up until the point they decided not to take him off the pitch, and then he turned into the Invisible Man.
and then you're bringing yeah, you're right, that was a bit strange, but you're bringing on sort of players that are lacking confidence and don't really know which way is up, and then maybe that is a bit of a problem. And
Maybe
I
it's
don't.
just not the game to bring back a Will Smallbone recovering from
Yeah,
injury when you're taking off, admittedly not by choice because he's taken a knock, probably your blinding starlight of the season, because we're trying to ignore how good Matty Fernandez is. Please, everyone.
yeah, you keep saying
That's
that.
it's just it's just not exactly like we said against Arsenal. You look at who they bring on off the bench and who we are
And who do we have
able
to
to
bring
bring
on?
on off the bench, and it's
Well,
like,
we'll
and,
discuss
and,
that a
and in
little
this
bit.
case, I think there were still better options.
There were, and I think this is one of those things where, like, I'm not saying we're armchair managers at the end of the day. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know what's going on in training. I don't know why those decisions necessarily were made. I'll have some final thoughts though about what can potentially be done, of how we should feel maybe going forward, after a word from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network. The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts. And we're back. So, Greg, I said I'd have some final thoughts about potentially what could be done, and potentially these options from the bench, because it doesn't look like we're buying anyone. And in regards to potentially purchasing people, obviously, I think that Jurek was asked about, well, you're going to look to pick up some players from the Italian league, and I think you said that his answer was no, they're not good enough for the Premier League, which
I
says a
think
lot.
what he actually said was probably the wordiest answer of his entire press conference. It was something along the lines of, "No, I think Italian clubs look for English players because they're better."
But one of the developments since our last podcast on transfers, Greg, is in a chaotic fan forum, Sheffield Wednesday fans discovered that Shay Charles had been recalled from loan as the owner left to take a call, took that call, and went, by the way, Southampton have recalled Shay Charles.
Yeah, just as a side note for everyone calling for new owners and Sports Republic out, when I say be careful what you wish for, it could be worse. If you just want to take a look at that Sheffield Wednesday fans forum as a whole, I think that really beautifully makes my point.
Yeah, it is really, really bad. Like, I'm happy to sell the club, find a buyer for me if I'm happy with the price I'll sell. You cannot cross the line with this. If you are not happy, then don't come. You don't have any right to protest. You just buy the ticket to watch the game. Poor, and that is from tweeted out from, I think, quotes from the Wednesday Till I Die podcast, which obviously are a Sheffield Wednesday podcast. But it's one of those things where after seeing this, because originally I was just like, oh, Shay Charles, here you go. Here's a question. Have you got a list of targets for January? No. So yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, that's basically the same as us, but we have recalled a very good player who, whether he's ready or not to step up to the league, who knows? But I guess now is a better time to find out. As I said, I would have preferred him to get some good minutes and game time under Sheffield Wednesday. Why we've recalled him, whether it's for him to play, whether it's for us to sell him, or whether it's that we looked at the situation of what's going on at that club at the moment and went, we want to get anything that we've got to do with them away from that, which I wouldn't blame
Yeah.
them either. So, potentially we've got some other players, I don't know how Wellington looks really. Hopefully, maybe we'll see him at some point.
The description I read, admittedly, I did not watch the under-21 game, but and in fact, I think it was Ivan Juric who commented on it in the press conference as not fit enough. So
Right, there you go. You've got
not ready yet.
Masuki, our sister club in Turkey. So, like, we've potentially got things that we could do. I very much doubt any of these things will happen. I could 100% see the window closing on the 31st of January with us not signing a single
I
player.
actually think it shuts in February this year, mate.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, I
That's
think it
upsetting.
heads slightly into February for no reason that I can
Good.
justifiably think of.
Well, it depends. All the big clubs need to finalise all of their. Every year, I get more confused by the transfer windows. However, not the point of what I'm trying to make. As you can tell, it's more just the points I'm trying to make are frantic because there's a lot of emotion after a game like that, and it's again to be the better side and to do all of that for so long, and then for us to just do exactly what we do and have done all season, week in week out. It's deflating in a way that I can't really describe because I really enjoyed the game. It was very entertaining, and it must
Yeah.
be very nice to be a Manchester United fan right now.
Ref
I
had a
just,
good game as well.
yeah, I guess apart from that goal kick we got given, that was definitely not a goal kick.
That was, yeah, no, you're right. And there was, and in fact, one that didn't get given as even going off the pitch, which was about 3 yards off. I think, like, Rambo kicked it and was almost behind the back of his net at that point.
Yeah, sure. So who knows? But yeah, it's been one of those games, mate, where like it could have been such a different story, and it's ended up as the same as it always is. And you know, yeah, there's probably some fault on the manager there. Yeah, there's some fault probably elsewhere, but it's just another game that we've lost, and will go down in the season of a season where we've lost lots and lots of games. And that's the problem, is that we probably won't, mention this game in a years to come. Maybe we'll think about it the next time we play Manchester United, but that's it for at least probably the next 2 years, unless we get them in a cup. And hopefully we never get them in a cup again, because we don't really have historically good records against them. But it is unfortunately my predicted outcome was 3-0 and a Xerxes hat trick. It was still a hat trick, and we scored a goal, except they had to be nice enough to score it for us. It's just not the way that it should have been. And so shout out to all of our away fans that made that trip. You're better men and women than I, because there's no way, I think that anyone deserved that. But like, the players tried. I think that it just shows you the gulf of quality and gulfs between the teams. And when we go for rebuild 2.0/3.0, hopefully it will be better, and there is a chance for it to be better. There are potentially new footballing people coming in to run this club at the back end. There is room for positivity in an area that currently is full of negativity.
And we weren't a million miles away today either. It has to be said. We were good for 75 minutes. If we can turn that extra 15 minutes up a notch and start converting some of those chances, we've got enough time left in the season to get the 2 wins we need. Yes, to not be the worst Premier League team ever.
And that is all we can really hope for in what has been.
We're going to win the FA Cup on the route as well, so
there's the delusion we know and love. Well, everyone, as you can tell, it's been a bit of a weird week for us with all of the weird scheduling. So I don't exactly know what's going to happen over the next couple of days. We're probably just going to build up to the Forest game one way or another, and we'll have some more wonderful discussions. The frantic energy that I have will have calmed, and I'll be back to my morose, depressed self. Greg will probably start to build up to another game where he thinks we're going to win 2-1 because he quote unquote has a feeling. And as I will always point out,
I currently feel like we're going to be lucky to escape with 9 or less against Forest, because I watched them play this week, and my notes tonight on us in the best part of our game said, "Oh, we look susceptible to a counter attack." So,
isn't it all part of the fun? So, Saints fans, thank you once again for joining us for manic-induced sadness with some laughing on the way. I'll leave you with a quote that we always say on this podcast. It is the hope that kills you. Have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, and goodbye.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.